The landings of the Prince of Orange at Brixham, 1688. In the year 1688, a historic event took place on the shores of Devon, England, that would shape the future of the nation and its people. The Prince of Orange, William of Orange, embarked on an expedition that would ultimately save England from the tyranny of its monarch, King James II, and secure the principles of civil and religious liberty. This momentous event has always been of great interest to historians and lovers of freedom, but it holds particular significance for the people of Devon, as it was on their shores that this daring expedition began. The Prince of Orange's expedition had been thoroughly documented by various historians, including Macaulay, who provided a detailed account of the events. However, a somewhat rare pamphlet, authored by a minister chaplain who accompanied the expedition, shed light on some lesser-known facts and local anecdotes related to the historic landing. The pamphlet, entitled An Exact Diary of the Late Expedition of His Illustrious Highness the Prince of Orange, recounted the journey from the Prince's palace at The Hague to his landing at Torbay. It was authored by John Whittle, who dedicated the work to prominent individuals of the time. One of the figures mentioned in the dedication was Sir John Maynard, the recorder of the borough where this Devonshire Association meeting took place. The aged lawyer, with his wit, remarked that had the Prince of Orange not come over, he might have outlived the law itself. Whittle's diary provided a vivid and graphic account of the preparations, departures, and arrival of the expedition. The fleet, consisting of around 400 ships, set sail from the Brill, making its way to Torbay with an east wind initially. The Prince's standard was hoisted, signalling the fleets to follow him towards England. As they approached the shore, the people of Devonshire flocked to the cliffs, watching in awe as the naval spectacle unfolded before them. On November 4, being the Prince's birthday, they anchored safely in Torbay. The Prince, accompanied by his officers, raised his standard on Brixham Quay. The people, uncertain of the identity of the approaching fleet, were quickly informed by the Prince that he came in peace to defend the Protestant religion, and maintain the purity of the gospel. As the Prince and his guards disembarked, the little fishing village of Brixham welcomed him with open arms. The locals presented a humorous and somewhat erroneous address, offering him buckhorn and ohi tea. The Prince, ever gracious, accepted their warm hospitality. While some of the anecdotes in Whittle's diary might have been embellished or disputed over time, one particular story remained significant to the people of Brixham. It involved a brave fisherman named Varwell, who had the honor of carrying the Prince ashore on his back. As a token of gratitude, the Prince promised to grant Varwell's request, which was to protect Brixham from the notorious press gangs that forcefully recruited men into the Royal Navy. Varwell's name and his heroics lived on in the local legends, and his supposed reward of a large sum of money allowed him to build a house and live a comfortable life. The historic landing of the Prince of Orange at Brixham left an indelible mark on the town's history and culture. The stone on which the Prince first set foot was preserved with pride and reverence, and its relocation to different locations, including the Victoria Pier, demonstrated the town's continued admiration for the Prince. Chapter 2. Amidst the cold, frosty night, an event of historical significance unfolded as William of Orange, the Protestant prince, and his army landed in Torbay. Whittles, an eyewitness to the proceedings, recounted the events that followed. The prince, after carefully surveying the terrain atop the hill, chose a suitable spot for his army to encamp. He then returned to a fisherman's humble dwelling, which he converted into a makeshift palace. Surrounding him were the horse guards and foot soldiers stationed at various houses, forming a protective cordon. The troops, consisting of English, Dutch, French, and Scots, arranged themselves in enclosures, separated by natural fences, hedges, and stone walls. Count Solmer commanded the foot guards of the Prince of Orange, while Count Nasser's regiment and Colonel Fagel's regiment were stationed in adjacent enclosures. As the soldiers settled in for the night, the sky sparkled with stars, but the ground was wet from earlier rains. They had to remain alert, standing by their arms throughout the night, fearing a potential enemy assault. To ward off the cold, the soldiers started fires, and those with provisions cooked their meals. However, provisions were scarce in the vicinity, and a crowded alehouse became the center of activity, with people eagerly seeking a glimpse of the prince. Legend spoke of the prince possibly spending the night at the alehouse and leaving behind a ring that eventually found its way into local lore. Whittles further narrated that on the following day, the prince rode with noblemen to inspect each regiment before returning for dinner at the small house. A significant number of regiments and officers accompanied the prince, and the arrival of around 15,400 soldiers must have left a striking impression on the surrounding countryside. People from nearby areas flocked to see the prince, and local tradition passed down tales of two individuals, Samuel and Thomas Windettes, who witnessed the historic landing. Samuel, a strict nonconformist, and his young son Thomas were among those who rolled apples down the hill to support the soldiers. Another woman, Juliana Babbage, then 12 years old, journeyed from Totnes to greet the prince and distribute his proclamations. She was rewarded with a gold chain and other items, now cherished as family heirlooms. However, the fervent persecution that followed the failed Duke of Monmouth's rebellion created fear among the people, making it difficult for prominent figures to openly support the prince at that moment. One of the earliest to do so was Mr. Nicholas Rupp, who received recognition when he was appointed as the governor of Dartmouth Castle after the prince reached St. James's. As the events unfolded, a letter from Governor Holdsworth to Sir H. P. Sealbart in 1857 confirmed the authenticity of Mr. Rupp's appointment as governor. Initially named as the governor on January 7, 1689, by William Henry, Prince of Orange, he was later confirmed as King of England on July 18, 1689. The historical account painted by Whittles and the tales passed down through generations illustrate the significance of the Prince of Orange's landing in Torbay. It was a moment that inspired both ordinary individuals and prominent figures to rally behind the prince, setting the stage for the transformative events that would follow in England's history. Chapter 3. Whitehall, May 24, 1692. The final piece. It was a warm spring day in the year 1692 when a dusty scroll found its way to the desk of Lord Nottingham in Whitehall. The scroll bore an important message addressed to a Mr. Nicholas Roop, a man who had caused a stir in the court of Queen Mary II. The letter was short but carried weighty implications. Sir, complaint having been made to the Queen that you stopped and advised a boat which was going to the fleet to give notice of the French being under sail, and of the place where they were, Her Majesty would have you forthwith given an account of how the matter of fact was, and what was the reason for your doing it. I am your humble servant, Nottingham. To Mr. Nicholas Roop, May the 27th, 1692. Mr. Roop, known to be a loyal servant of King James, had been involved in a sensitive situation. The French fleet was rumored to be advancing, and every decision carried immense consequences. The letter from Lord Nottingham reached him, and he hurriedly penned a response to explain his actions. Sir, I received yours of the 24th and wrote my reason for stopping the catch to my Lord Cornwallis, desiring him to acquaint Her Majesty. I had sent 2 expresses from Dartmouth about the French fleet's movements. Seeing a vessel under sail after these expresses were gone, I could not justify its passage. Furthermore, Mr. Bowers, the vessel's master, had ties to King James, and it seemed suspicious. I hope this justifies my actions. Your obedient servant, Nicholas Roop. To the Right Honourable the Earl of Nottingham, Their Majesty Secretary of State. As the events unfolded, another historical figure, Sir Edward Seymour, the younger, was living in Barry Pomeroy, not far from the Princess's Landing. Sir Edward, a prominent man in Parliament, had joined the Prince at Exeter and played a crucial role in garnering support for the Prince's cause. The prince had planned a secret meeting with Sir Edward, and the details were scarce in the historical documents, leaving room for speculation. The scroll continued to recount the events leading up to the prince's march to Exeter. The prince's army faced numerous challenges, including the loss of nearly 600 horses during a storm and the soldiers' struggle with the difficult terrain. The soldiers' spirits were lifted when they encountered support from the local people as they marched towards Newton Abbot. Finally, the scroll mentioned an inscription on an old stone pedestal near Newton, claiming that the prince's declaration was read there. The inscription, though likely incorrect in its specific details, hinted at the significance of the momentous event that took place in Newton Abbot. The true identity of the clergyman who read the declaration remained a mystery, but two prominent figures, the Reverend John Raynell and Dr. Burnett, were likely candidates. The scroll ended with a promise to recount the prince's visit to Exeter at a later time, leaving readers eager for more details about this remarkable historical event. As time passed, the dusty scroll remained an invaluable piece of history, shedding light on the crucial events that unfolded during the prince's campaign and the fervor of the people who supported him. The legacy of those who played their part in this historical drama lived on through these documents, forever etched in the annals of history.